Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1. Hey, if it's your birthday, happy birthday. That's how we start these videos out here on ETCG1. Get used to it. I bet you watch these videos when it's your birthday just because of that. Funny story, well, maybe we should talk about what we're talking about today, and that is grill your customers, or maybe a better way to put it is interrogate your customers. Yeah, that's what I think I'll call it, interrogate your customers. All right, funny story. Guy comes in a few weeks back, actually, had it was a 2003 Honda Civic. And his complaint is that occasionally while he was driving down the highway, it was stalling. That was what I got. He would just be driving along and the thing would stall. And you know, I get questions about Honda stalling all the time. I mean, seriously, like all the time, inundated with it. So I checked the usual suspects. I went looking around all the tune-up items and all that stuff. Didn't really find anything. And I was trying to ask, get an idea of when it was stalling. And apparently it was stalling like when he was coming to a stoplight, something of that nature. So once I checked all the usual suspects and found that everything was pretty much in order, the next thing I concluded was a possible problem with the idle air control valve acting up. I've seen them act up intermittently where sometimes they behave and they're just fine, of course, when I'm looking at it. But as soon as you give it back to the customer, it starts acting wacky and idle starts going everywhere and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I said, maybe we have a problem with the idle air control valve and that's the reason why it's stalling on you. And he's like, okay, well, all right, well, I can put it on, but you have to understand it's just a guess. I've eliminated all the possibilities and really can't see a reason why this car is stalling. So I put the idle air control valve on and I send him back down the road. A couple weeks later, he comes back and he's like, well, it's still stalling. And I'm like, there's something more going on here. And I started just sort of talking to him a little bit about it. And it got towed in. And when it got towed in, I had trouble moving the car. I had trouble physically moving the car. I couldn't push it around like I could normally push it around. It was in neutral. And, I began to wonder. So I put it up on the lift and I spun the front wheels. And gosh darn it, if they weren't locked up, if the calipers weren't locked up. Now, originally when he brought it in, that wasn't the case. I even took it out for a test drive afterwards. I took it out for a test drive before. I was trying to replicate the problem. Didn't see it. Well, the reason why his car was stalling is because his brakes were overheating so much and overworking the engine and transmission so much they quit. And it never occurred to him. He didn't make the connection. Okay, I know those of you that are watching are like, how could he? Wow. Listen, not everybody's like us. Some of them are muggles, and they just don't understand. They don't have a connection with the machine. They're good at other things that we're not good at. Point being, this never came up. And I never thought to ask him, oh, hey, did you happen to notice the engine was making more noise and the car wasn't necessarily moving like it should? I didn't think to ask that. The only thing I heard was stalling, and I ran with that. And that's why I bring up this point today, because not only to share this amusing story with you, and I ended up replacing both front calipers, by the way, and it's driven away, and everything is fine now. It no longer stalls. Yay. Yes, both front calipers were locked up on that car, weirdly. Anyhow, happy ending. He drove away and no longer had that issue. However, he was out the extra money of the idle air control valve. That kind of bit, but that was part of that whole thing where he didn't disclose all the information about what was occurring with his vehicle. So this is my point of imparting this information to you. And there was another instance. There's been other instances similar to this where, I've talked to somebody and they give me a description of what they feel the problem is, and I bring it in and I don't find a problem and I give it back to them and they're like, the problem's still there. And then you dig a little deeper and you find out that there is completely oddball connection somewhere to some other problem that's causing the problem that they're actually noticing. Interrogate your customers or just the people that you're doing work on their cars. I realize some of you are DIYers, maybe you're working on friends, family, that kind of thing, but you need to get the information. I mean, really the diagnosis starts with that interrogation, and I'm going to call it an interrogation, and it kind of should be that way. Maybe make up a checklist or something to cover all the bases, but this one completely out of left field for me. It never occurred to me to ask about the brakes for a stalling issue, but yet that is what caused it. So, convoluted way to getting to the point, whatever, but that's the game we play. It's not just figuring out what the machine is telling you. Sometimes it's figuring out what the customer is telling you, and that can be an equally difficult, if not more difficult, diagnosis than diagnosing the machine. The machines are full of absolutes, well, sort of, unless it's an electrical intermittent problem. That said, yeah, people are a bit more of a mystery, a bit more complicated. So do your due diligence, interrogate them, make sure that they tell you everything that you need to know in order to properly address a problem they might be having with their vehicle. Anyhow, I'm going to close this out, put the question back to you. Have you run into something like this? Have you run into some strange problem that had some weird, strange 6 degrees of separation? You know, Kevin Bacon caused it, kind of problems with a vehicle. What's your story? Anyway, I'd love to hear about it. If not in the comments, I'll put a link in the description to a discussion about this video over there at thecarguy.com if you wish to carry on over there. Also, if you have automotive questions, I'd ask you to head over to air@thecarguy.com to get answers. We have resources there to give you those answers to those automotive questions. If you wish to connect with me socially, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, also Instagram, and I close each of my videos. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.